Hey everybody, Dr. Dave Marquis here, and I wanted to share with you a brief message about common sense and the common cold. I started to think about this when some headlines came to my mind and some questions were put before me that seemed to me to be speaking in the face of this whole concept of what I considered common sense. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I need to look up what common sense is. And so I actually looked up a definition, and I'm going to read it to you. It says common sense is the ability to exercise logical judgment. And then there's an expanded version of that. Common sense refers to the basic ability to perceive, understand, and judge things, which is shared by nearly all people without the need for specialized knowledge. I love that part. It encompasses all knowledge and judgments that are generally accepted and understood by a large group of people regardless of their background. It was kind of what I was thinking. I don't think that I could have said it that eloquently, though. The headline that really hit me, you know what, before I tell you that, I want to share with you a couple of other points that really are common sense, so that you can take that definition and put it back into context. Things like not touching a hot stove, that would be considered common sense. You don't want to burn yourself. Don't enter an elevator while you have other people exiting. And for that matter, look where you're going. Wear appropriate clothing for the situation that you're entering. For example, a job interview. Dress nicely for that. And while we're on job interview, don't look at your cell phone while you're in the middle of a job interview. And while I'm on cell phones, don't stare at your cell phone while you're walking. We see people getting injured all the time, stepping off of curbs and into traffic and into poles. You could add a lot of things to this list that you might consider common sense. But the thing that really struck me relative to the common cold was this headline that says the common cold is now associated with blood clotting disorders. And I thought to myself, wow, the common cold, blood clotting disorders, for the first time in millennia. How could that be? And as I read it, I realized, wow, this is actually legit, but it's new. What made it new? And so then I looked at the viruses that they were discussing, and they were specifically talking about adenoviruses. Now, adenoviruses and coronaviruses, for example, have been with us literally for millennia. We've only had the capacity to really study them for about the last 100 years, but they've been around. They're not new. However, what is new is how we as humans have manipulated and worked with them. So, is it really the adenovirus's fault that we might be having some clotting disorders, or is it something that we might have done as humans to the adenovirus, or therapies around the adenovirus that we might have gotten involved in? I'll leave that up for you to decide. Nonetheless, as I see things like that, I see it as a drive to continually keep us in fear. And going into the holidays, we've also termed this period of time, and if you watched my video last year at this time, I kind of shared a similar message about the cold and flu season that isn't a season. It's just a time of year where we don't have as much vitamin D access. We put ourselves under extra stress. We surround ourselves by a lot of new things, bodies and people. Our immune system gets suppressed, and we're not as adept at dealing with new things. So it's not, again, the cold and flu season's fault. It's us that we're not preparing for situations that we're entering. And my argument has always been, well, if you prepare yourself, you should be able to present yourself in any situation and come out of it well. And in fact, that's what we help our patients do. So, to this point about the common cold being now associated with clotting disorders, and I said that it appears that it may be real in some individuals. You may remember in some of my past videos where I talked about the clotting disorders that we've seen skyrocket in the last 2 to 3 years. So that's not new. But we do know that we're able to deal with that, right? So it's not something to fear, it's something to prepare yourself for. Just like if we're going into October, November, December, don't eat a ton of candy. Don't drink a whole lot of alcohol. Don't stay up late. Make sure that you protect your sleep and stay hydrated. Keep your hands and nose clean. You know, there's a lot of things that we can all do. And then you've got the things nutritionally that I've often talked about, making sure that your vitamin A, E, D, K, glutathione, C are all on board. And then have those extra things that you might need around. Now we have a new extra category because of blood clotting disorders, and that would be blood thinning agents like fibrenza or enzymes that denature it, you know, the nattokinase, the serrapeptidase, the lumbrokinase families. Those are all readily available, and they help to denature proteins in our bloodstream that might be problematic for people. Recognize that whatever you see in the media that is there to induce fear is just that, and please don't buy into it. One of the primary goals in life is to find joy. And when we have these types of things put into our face that make us scratch our head, realize that that's the antithesis of joy. Keep focused, keep doing the things that you know work, and when you see stuff like that, ignore it. Move on because you know better. It's not something that you need to dwell on and embrace and get hyped up about. The whole goal of this message right now is to embrace common sense and to be well.